The ocean erupted in chaos. A massive great white shark tore through the waves, ramming a rescue lifeboat as a crew member fought for his life in the blood-streaked water. The predator struck again, dragging him under as teammates scrambled to fend it off. Caught between towering waves and the relentless predator, the crew waged a desperate battle for survival. This is just one of the 6 shocking shark attack stories that will leave you gripping the edge of your seat. The Oregon coast is notorious for its unpredictable weather and towering waves, a place where the Pacific Ocean shows its raw power. On November 1, 2024, the waters near Cape Disappointment lived up to their reputation. A brewing storm had sent 20-foot swells crashing against the rocky shore, turning the already treacherous coastline into a deadly challenge. It was a night when most vessels stayed in port, but one fishing boat found itself caught in the chaos. The boat, the Silver Dawn, was in distress. Radio calls for help had come through earlier in the evening, reporting mechanical failure and an overwhelmed crew. The U.S. Coast Guard station in Astoria, Oregon, responded quickly, dispatching a team of surfmen to rescue the stranded fishermen. These surfmen, elite rescue personnel trained to handle the worst conditions, were no strangers to danger. Among them was 31-year-old Owen Hartley, a seasoned Coast Guard veteran known for his calm under pressure. Alongside him were crewmates Caleb Mendez, 28, and Ethan Klein, 34, all experienced in high-risk missions. The team set out on their 47-foot motor lifeboat, designed to withstand the roughest seas. As they approached the Silver Dawn, the storm intensified. Rain lashed the deck, and waves rose higher, crashing over the bow with deafening force. The fishing boat was barely visible in the darkness, its lights flickering as it rocked dangerously in the swells. The Coast Guard crew prepared their equipment, knowing the conditions would push their training to the limit. Owen and his team positioned the lifeboat alongside the Silver Dawn. The plan was to transfer the fishermen one by one, but the situation grew more complicated when one of the fishermen slipped and fell into the water. Without hesitation, Owen grabbed a lifeline and dove in after him. The cold water hit like a shock, but Owen focused on the task, swimming toward the struggling man. As Owen reached the fisherman, something unexpected happened. A shadow moved beneath them, too large and too deliberate to be ignored. The waters off Oregon are home to many shark species, including the occasional great white, which patrol the coastline in search of seals and fish. Great whites are apex predators, capable of growing over 20 feet long and weighing thousands of pounds. They are known for their stealth and power, and their presence is always a cause for alarm. The shark struck with terrifying speed. It surged upward, its massive jaws clamping onto Owen's leg and pulling him under. The force of the attack was overwhelming, and Owen felt a sharp, searing pain as the shark's teeth tore into his flesh. Blood clouded the water, and the fisherman, now free of Owen's grip, was pushed away by the turbulence. On the lifeboat, Caleb and Ethan saw the commotion and realized what was happening. Shouting to the crew, they deployed a rescue line and maneuvered the boat closer. Using a boat hook, Caleb tried to keep the shark at bay, while Ethan prepared to pull Owen out of the water. Underwater, Owen fought with everything he had. He kicked at the shark with his free leg, aiming for its sensitive gills and snout. The predator thrashed, dragging him deeper as he struggled to break free. The world around him was a blur of blood and churning water, and each second felt like a lifetime. Finally, a well-placed kick landed near the shark's eye, and it released him, retreating momentarily. Owen surfaced, gasping for air, but the ordeal wasn't over. The shark circled back, its dorsal fin cutting through the water as it prepared for another strike. The fisherman, still floating nearby, screamed for help as the shark turned its attention toward him. Owen, despite his injuries, swam toward the man, grabbing hold of him and pushing him toward the rescue line. Caleb extended the boat hook, managing to pull the fisherman aboard just as the shark surged forward again. This time, the shark rammed the lifeboat, causing it to lurch violently. The crew struggled to maintain their footing as waves crashed over the deck. Owen, still in the water, was dangerously close to the predator. Ethan, acting quickly, threw a weighted rescue sling which Owen managed to grab. The crew hauled him aboard, blood streaming from his leg as he collapsed onto the deck. The shark wasn't done. It circled the lifeboat, its fin cutting ominously through the water as if waiting for another opportunity. Caleb and Ethan worked quickly to stabilize Owen, using a tourniquet to stem the bleeding. The fisherman, though shaken, was unharmed. The crew knew they had to act fast. The storm was worsening, and the shark's presence made staying in the area too dangerous. With limited visibility and waves threatening to capsize them, the team made the call to retreat. The lifeboat's powerful engines roared to life as they navigated through the swells, the shark following briefly before disappearing into the depths. The journey back to shore was grueling, each wave slamming against the hull as the crew worked to keep Owen stable. When they finally reached the Coast Guard station, medics were waiting to rush Owen to the hospital. His injuries were severe but not life-threatening, thanks to the quick actions of his crewmates. The fisherman, though shaken, expressed his gratitude for the team's bravery and determination. The attack left the Coast Guard crew rattled, but also highlighted the unpredictable nature of their work. The storm alone had been a formidable challenge, but the shark's presence turned an already dangerous mission into a fight for survival. Owen's courage and the crew's quick thinking were hailed as a testament to the training and resolve of the U.S. Coast Guard. Marine biologists later examined the incident, noting that shark attacks on humans are rare, but can happen in chaotic conditions like those that night. The storm likely disrupted the shark's usual hunting patterns, bringing it closer to shore and into contact with the rescue operation. For Owen and his team, the encounter was a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictability and the risks they face every time they answer the call for help. On March 8, 2021, the waters off Gansbaai, South Africa, were calm and clear, perfect conditions for spearfishing. Gansbaai, known as the Great White Shark Capital of the world, sits along the southern coast where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans meet. It's a place where marine life thrives. Reefs teem with fish, seals play near rocky shores, and of course, great white sharks patrol the waters. The sharks, drawn by the seals and rich marine ecosystems, make these waters both fascinating and dangerous. Liam Jacobs, a 33-year-old experienced spearfisher from Cape Town, had been diving these waters for years. Spearfishing was more than a hobby for him, it was a passion. He loved the challenge of holding his breath, hunting his prey with precision, and bringing home his catch. That morning, Liam and his two crewmates, Martin and Junaid, set out early on their small fishing boat. The sun had barely risen as they loaded their gear: wetsuits, spear guns, and a cooler for their catch. The plan was simple: head to a reef about 5 kilometers offshore where Liam had previously found large reef fish like yellowtail and grouper. The crew joked and laughed as they launched the boat, the hum of the engine cutting through the quiet morning. For Liam, it felt like another routine trip. He had always respected the sharks in the area, but they rarely bothered spearfishers, especially with a well-prepared team. By 8:30 a.m., they reached the reef and anchored. Liam donned his wetsuit, strapped on his weight belt, and grabbed his spear gun. He adjusted his mask and slid into the water, the cool ocean wrapping around him. The visibility was excellent, allowing him to see the vibrant reef below. Fish darted in and out of crevices, their scales catching the sunlight. He dove down, holding his breath as he moved slowly and deliberately, scanning for his first target. Liam spotted a large yellowtail near the reef. He lined up his shot, steadying the spear gun before pulling the trigger. The spear struck true, piercing the fish cleanly. He grabbed it and surfaced, the first catch of the day already in hand. Martin and Junaid cheered from the boat, and Liam gave them a thumbs up before diving again. For the next hour, Liam repeated the process, spearing several more fish. Each time he swam back to the boat, handing off his catch to his crewmates, who secured them in the cooler. The water remained calm and Liam felt at ease. But on his final dive, things took a sudden and terrifying turn. Liam had just speared a grouper when he noticed a change in the water around him. The fish that had been swimming freely moments ago seemed to vanish, darting into hiding among the rocks. A deep, primal instinct told him something was wrong. As he surfaced with the grouper, he glanced down and saw it, a massive shadow moving beneath him. It was a great white shark, easily 15 feet long. Drawn by the scent of blood from Liam's catch, it was moving with deliberate, predatory grace. Liam froze, his heart pounding. He clutched his spear gun tightly, knowing it was his only defense. The shark rose quickly, its powerful tail propelling it upward. Before Liam could react, it struck. The shark's jaws clamped onto Liam's arm, the force of the bite sending a shockwave of pain through his body. The impact knocked the spear gun from his grip, and he was dragged underwater, the grouper still in his other hand. The world became a blur of thrashing water and blood as the shark's immense strength pulled him deeper. Liam kicked and struggled, desperate to break free. His mind raced as he reached for the only weapon he had left, the spear gun now floating nearby. With his free hand, he grabbed it and thrust it toward the shark's gills, one of the most sensitive parts of its body. The sharp tip struck true, causing the predator to release him. Liam's arm throbbed with pain and blood poured from the wounds, but he was free. Gasping for air, Liam surfaced, his eyes scanning for the boat. Martin and Junaid were already yelling and waving, urging him to swim. The shark, however, was not finished. It circled back, its dorsal fin breaking the surface as it closed in for another attack. Liam, weak and bleeding, paddled as fast as he could toward the boat, his legs burning with effort. Martin grabbed a boat hook and leaned over the side, extending it toward Liam. As the shark surged forward again, Junaid started the engine, revving it loudly in an attempt to scare the predator away. The noise seemed to work momentarily, but the shark made one last lunge, snapping its jaws just inches from Liam's flipper as Martin hauled him aboard. Liam collapsed onto the deck, his wetsuit soaked with blood. His arm was badly mangled, deep gashes exposing muscle and bone. Martin and Junaid worked quickly, using towels and a belt to create a makeshift tourniquet. The shark circled the boat once more before disappearing into the depths, leaving behind a sea-stained red. With no time to lose, Junaid radioed for help, alerting the nearest rescue station. A helicopter was dispatched, and its crew was trained for emergencies like this. As they waited, Martin kept pressure on Liam's arm, speaking calmly to keep him conscious. The boat rocked in the gentle waves, the tension in the air palpable. The rescue helicopter arrived within 20 minutes, lowering a medic onto the boat. The medic assessed Liam's condition, stabilizing him before hoisting him into the chopper. Martin and Junaid watched as their friend was airlifted to safety, their adrenaline still coursing from the ordeal. Liam's survival was nothing short of a miracle. His quick thinking and the swift actions of his crew saved his life, but the encounter left its mark, both physically and emotionally. The attack served as a stark reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the surface, especially in shark-heavy waters like those off Gansby. On February 23, 2019, Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia was alive with energy. Crowds gathered along the Golden Sands to watch the Bondi Ocean Swim, a major event that drew competitors from across the country. The waters off Bondi Beach are known for their beauty, their strong rip currents, and their vibrant marine life. Sharks are a known presence here, with species like bronze whalers, bull sharks, and the occasional great white often patrolling the coastline. While sightings of great whites are rare near such a busy beach, they are never completely out of mind for swimmers and surfers alike. Rachel Finn, a 27-year-old competitive swimmer from Melbourne, was among the hundreds of athletes taking part in the 2-kilometer ocean race that day. Rachel had been swimming competitively since she was a teenager and had competed in open water races for years. She was confident in her ability to handle the surf and loved the thrill of racing in the ocean. That morning, Rachel arrived early to stretch and prepare alongside her teammates. The air was warm, the waves were manageable, and the conditions seemed perfect for the race. By mid-morning, the event was underway. The swimmers began in staggered groups, sprinting into the water from the shore and diving into the waves. Rachel felt strong as she moved through the surf, her strokes steady and her breathing controlled. She found her rhythm quickly, keeping pace with the other competitors as they swam toward the first buoy. Lifeguards patrolled the course on jet skis, ensuring the swimmers stayed on track and responding quickly to any signs of distress. The first half of the race was uneventful. Rachel passed the halfway mark, rounding the second buoy as she maintained her position in the middle of the pack. The water was clear, and she occasionally caught glimpses of fish darting below. The crowd on shore cheered as the swimmers moved farther out to sea, their brightly colored caps visible against the waves. As Rachel approached the final stretch, something changed. She felt a sudden sharp pain in her side, unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was searing and immediate, stopping her mid-stroke. She gasped and instinctively clutched at her torso, realizing she couldn't move as fluidly as before. The pain was overwhelming, and when she looked down, she saw blood in the water. Panic set in as she struggled to stay afloat. Rachel trod water, trying to assess what had happened. She turned to see a dark shadow moving below her, a massive great white shark, easily over 12 feet long. The predator circled slowly, its movements deliberate and unnerving. Rachel realized the shark had bitten her, its powerful jaws tearing into her side before retreating into the depths. The scent of blood and the thrashing in the water seemed to draw it closer again. Nearby, swimmers began shouting, their voices carrying across the waves. Lifeguards on jet skis sprang into action, racing toward Rachel as spectators on shore watched helplessly. The shark continued to circle, its dorsal fin breaking the surface as it moved closer. Rachel's strength was fading and her strokes became weaker as she tried to keep her head above water. The pain in her side was unbearable, and she knew she was losing blood quickly. The first lifeguard reached her, maneuvering the jet ski alongside Rachel and extending a rescue sled. She grabbed onto it with what little strength she had left as the lifeguard pulled her aboard. The shark remained nearby, its dark shape looming just beneath the surface. Another lifeguard arrived, circling the jet ski to keep the predator at bay while the first lifeguard sped toward the shore. The rescue was tense and chaotic. The crowd on the beach fell silent as the jet ski approached, Rachel lying motionless on the sled, her wetsuit soaked in blood. Paramedics were waiting on the sand, rushing to her side as soon as the lifeguards brought her in. They worked quickly to stabilize her, applying pressure to the wound and starting IV fluids to combat the blood loss. Rachel was loaded into an ambulance and taken to the nearest hospital. Her condition was critical but stable. Meanwhile, the shark disappeared into the deeper waters, leaving behind a shaken community. Officials temporarily halted the race and cleared the water, urging swimmers to return to the shore. The incident left competitors and spectators in shock, many unable to believe that such a rare and terrifying attack had occurred during a high-profile event. Rachel's injuries were severe. The shark's bite had torn through muscle and tissue, requiring extensive surgery to repair. She spent weeks in recovery, her physical and emotional scars serving as a reminder of the encounter. The attack prompted widespread discussions about ocean safety and the risks of open water events in areas frequented by sharks. Marine experts noted that Bondi Beach's proximity to deep waters made it a natural hunting ground for great whites, especially during the summer months when fish and other prey were abundant. For Rachel, the experience was life-changing. While the attack left her with lasting scars, it also inspired her to raise awareness about the complexities of sharing the ocean with its apex predators. She spoke openly about the need for both caution and respect when entering their territory, emphasizing that while such encounters are rare, they are a risk that comes with the beauty and power of the sea. Monterey Bay, California is a renowned diving destination. Its deep underwater canyons and vibrant marine life attract divers, researchers, and ocean enthusiasts year-round. The waters are home to a variety of marine species, including seals, sea otters, and at the top of the food chain, great white sharks. These apex predators frequent the bay, especially in the fall, drawn by the abundance of prey near the kelp forests and rocky outcrops. While most shark encounters are non-aggressive, Monterey Bay has its share of stories that remind divers of the risks beneath the surface. On October 14, 2017, Alex Turner, a 29-year-old free diver from Santa Cruz, prepared for a challenging dive just off the bay's edge. Alex was an experienced diver who had spent years honing his ability to hold his breath for extended periods. That day, he aimed to set a personal depth record of 30 meters without a protective cage. For Alex, the challenge wasn't just physical. It was a test of mental focus and control. His dive team, including his best friend Marcus and fellow diver Olivia, supported him from their small boat anchored nearby. The morning was calm as the team set up their equipment. Alex double-checked his fins, weight belt, and diving knife, a tool he always carried for emergencies. Olivia prepared a safety line, which Alex would clip to his belt for the descent, ensuring the team could monitor his progress and pull him up if necessary. They discussed the plan in detail, reviewing the signals Alex would use if he encountered trouble. Despite the risks, Alex felt confident. He had completed similar dives before and trusted his skills. By 9:30 a.m., Alex was ready. He sat on the edge of the boat, taking slow, deep breaths to oxygenate his body. When the time came, he slipped into the water, the coolness embracing him as he adjusted his mask. The visibility was excellent, and he could see the faint outlines of the sea floor below. After one final breath, he began his descent, kicking smoothly and efficiently toward the depths. The first 10 meters passed quickly. The water grew darker as he continued, the pressure increasing on his chest and ears. Alex equalized periodically, focusing on his form and conserving energy. At 20 meters, he paused briefly, looking around at the rocky terrain below. Fish darted through the water and patches of kelp swayed gently in the current. It was a scene of beauty and calm, exactly what Alex loved about freediving. Reaching his target depth of 30 meters, Alex felt a rush of accomplishment. He floated for a moment, enjoying the quiet and stillness. But as he began his ascent, he noticed a shift in the water around him. The fish that had been swimming nearby suddenly scattered, vanishing into the kelp. A sense of unease washed over him, and he instinctively glanced downward. A massive shadow moved below, its sleek form unmistakable. A great white shark. It was at least 15 feet long, its powerful body gliding effortlessly through the water. The shark rose quickly, closing the distance between them with terrifying speed. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline as he kicked harder, desperate to reach the surface. The shark struck from below, its jaws clamping onto Alex's leg. The force of the bite was staggering, and pain shot through his body as the predator shook him violently. Blood billowed into the water, clouding his vision. Alex struggled to stay composed, knowing panic would only worsen his situation. He reached for his diving knife strapped to his thigh and began stabbing at the shark's gills, one of its most sensitive areas. The shark thrashed, dragging Alex downward as it tried to assert its dominance. Each second felt like an eternity as Alex fought back, landing a series of strikes with his knife. Finally, one well-placed stab caused the shark to release him. It retreated momentarily, circling at a distance as if deciding whether to strike again. Alex seized the moment to ascend, his injured leg throbbing and bleeding heavily. He signaled frantically to the surface, using the safety line to alert his team. Marcus and Olivia, already on high alert after noticing the blood in the water, moved quickly. Marcus dove in with a rescue rope while Olivia maneuvered the boat closer to Alex's position. The shark, still circling, made another pass, its dorsal fin breaking the surface as it closed in on Alex. Marcus reached Alex just in time, grabbing him under the arms and pulling him toward the boat. Olivia used a boat hook to create noise and splashing, hoping to deter the shark. The predator hesitated, its movements less aggressive but still ominous. With one final effort, Marcus and Olivia hauled Alex onto the deck, blood pooling around him as they worked to stabilize his injuries. Alex's leg was severely wounded, the bite marks deep and jagged. Marcus applied a tourniquet to stem the bleeding while Olivia radioed for emergency assistance. The boat rocked in the waves as the team worked quickly, their adrenaline pumping. The shark lingered briefly before disappearing into the depths, leaving the water eerily calm. A rescue helicopter arrived within 20 minutes, its crew lowering a medic onto the boat. Alex was airlifted to the nearest hospital. His condition was critical but stable. The attack left him shaken and questioning his passion for free diving. While he had always respected the ocean and its predators, the experience underscored the thin line between adventure and danger in shark habitats. Alex's story spread quickly, sparking debates about the safety of free diving without protective measures in areas known for shark activity. Marine experts explained that the shark likely mistook Alex for prey, drawn by the sound of his movements and the vulnerability of his position in open water. For Alex, the encounter was a sobering reminder of the ocean's unpredictability and the risks inherent in pushing human limits in nature's domain. On August 10, 2015, the waters off Cape Cod's Nauset Beach sparkled under the summer sun. Tourists filled the sands, enjoying the peak of the vacation season. Cape Cod, Massachusetts is a favorite destination for its mix of scenic beauty and wildlife. However, in recent years, its waters have gained a reputation for being home to a growing population of great white sharks. These apex predators are drawn by the thriving seal colonies that frequent the area, The warnings were posted and shark flags flew at lifeguard towers. But for many beachgoers, the danger felt distant, more a curiosity than a real threat. Mia Taylor, a 34-year-old middle school teacher from Chicago, was one of those visitors. On vacation with friends, Mia had been excited about trying something new, kayaking along Cape Cod's iconic shoreline. Her friends had opted to stay on the beach, but Mia, drawn to the adventure, rented a kayak from a local shop that morning. She'd kayaked only a handful of times before, mostly on calm lakes back home. The ocean felt more daunting, but the rental staff assured her that the waters near Nauset Beach were calm and the seals would make for an exciting view. Mia paddled out around mid-morning, her blue kayak gliding easily over the water. She had a small waterproof bag with her phone and some water, her essentials for a leisurely paddle. The sights and sounds were incredible. Seagulls diving for fish, seals bobbing in the distance, and the occasional splash of a larger fish breaking the surface. She took her time, paddling farther from the shore and pausing to take in the scenery. Mia wasn't alone on the water. A few other kayakers dotted the horizon, some in groups, others solo like her. Most were staying closer to shore, but Mia, feeling confident, ventured toward a small, rocky outcrop about a mile out. This area was particularly active with seals, their dark heads popping up and disappearing as they swam. The rental staff hadn't explicitly warned her about the dangers of paddling near seals, though seasoned locals knew better. Seals are the primary prey of great white sharks, and anywhere seals gather, sharks are likely nearby. Around 11:30 a.m., Mia noticed a sudden change in the water. The seals that had been playfully darting around seemed to vanish, diving beneath the surface. She found it odd but wasn't overly concerned. She continued paddling, unaware of the predator lurking below. The first sign of trouble came as a jolt, an impact so sudden and powerful that it felt like the kayak had hit a submerged rock. Mia gasped as the kayak rocked violently, tipping her off balance. Before she could recover, a massive great white shark breached the surface. Its jaws clamped onto the stern of her kayak, shaking it with incredible force. The impact flipped the kayak, throwing Mia into the water. She surfaced, gasping for air, and clung to the overturned kayak. Panic gripped her as she saw the shark, a massive creature easily 15 feet long, circling just a few meters away. Its dorsal fin sliced through the water, a chilling reminder of its presence. The shark lunged at the kayak again, biting into the plastic with a sickening crunch. Each attack sent shockwaves through the water, rocking the kayak and forcing Mia to cling tighter. Nearby kayakers had noticed the commotion. They shouted and splashed their paddles, trying to draw attention to Mia and scare off the predator. Some paddled closer but kept a safe distance, unsure how to help without putting themselves in danger. Mia's heart raced as the shark disappeared beneath the surface, the waiting almost worse than the attack itself. She scanned the water, bracing for its next move. The shark reappeared moments later, striking the kayak with its snout and nearly knocking it out of Mia's grasp. It seemed relentless, circling and testing the strange object in its territory. Mia's grip on the kayak tightened as she tried to keep her head above water, her legs kicking weakly as she fought against the current and her growing exhaustion. The shark's sheer size and power left her feeling small and helpless. The other kayakers acted quickly, one of them using a whistle to signal for help, while another dialed emergency services. A rescue boat from the harbor responded within minutes, its engine roaring as it sped toward the scene. The crew could see the shark circling Mia and her damaged kayak, its dorsal fin cutting ominously through the water. As the boat approached, the shark made another lunge, its massive jaws biting into the kayak's side. This time, the plastic cracked audibly, and the kayak sank lower into the water. The rescue crew shouted and revved the engine, creating noise and waves to scare the shark away. The predator hesitated, its movements slowing as it assessed the larger threat. One crew member extended a pole toward Mia, who grabbed it with trembling hands. With a final push, the shark swam off, disappearing into the deeper water. The crew hauled Mia aboard, her body shaking from the cold and shock. Her hands were scraped and raw from clinging to the kayak, and her breaths came in short, panicked gasps. The damaged kayak, its stern covered in deep bite marks, was towed back to shore as the crew worked to calm Mia and check for injuries. On shore, a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the sight of the rescue boat. They watched in silence as Mia was helped onto the sand, her face pale and her clothes soaked. Though physically unharmed, the emotional toll was evident. She sat on the beach staring at the horizon where the shark had vanished, trying to process the terrifying encounter. The attack sent shockwaves through the local community. While shark warnings were not uncommon in Cape Cod, an attack on a kayaker so close to shore was rare. Marine biologists later examined the kayak and confirmed the bite marks as those of a great white shark. They explained that the shark likely mistook the kayak for a seal, a case of mistaken identity common in areas with high shark activity. For Mia, the experience left lasting scars, not on her body, but on her spirit. The ocean, once a place of beauty and adventure, now held a darker, more menacing presence. Her story served as a stark reminder of the unpredictable dangers of nature and the fine line between admiration and risk when sharing the sea with its apex predators. On March 18, 2013, the waters off Stewart Island, New Zealand, were calm but deceptive. Stewart Island, known for its rugged coastline and pristine marine ecosystems, is a haven for fishermen and adventurers alike. It's also infamous for being home to a large population of great white sharks, drawn to the region by the abundance of seals and fish in the cold, nutrient-rich waters. For the fishermen who work these waters, sharks are a common sight, respected but rarely feared. That sense of security was shattered for the crew of the Southern Gale. The Southern Gale was a modest 22-foot fishing vessel owned and captained by Rob Dawson, a 41-year-old with over 2 decades of fishing experience. Rob was known as a steady, level-headed leader who always emphasized safety on his trips. With him were Pete Fletcher, 33, a skilled deckhand who had been working with Rob for years, and Dan Brooks, 27, the youngest and newest member of the crew. This was only Dan's 3rd trip, and he was eager to prove himself. The 3 men had set out early that morning, excited by the promise of a good haul. The boat left Oban Harbor before dawn, cutting through the dark water toward a favored fishing spot about 6 kilometers offshore. By sunrise, the men had anchored near a rocky outcrop and were busy hauling in their first catch. Blue cod and snapper filled their crates, the kind of haul that made the hard work worthwhile. The atmosphere on board was relaxed, with the men joking and working in rhythm as they prepared for another round of fishing. By mid-morning, the Southern Gale was sitting low in the water, its hold nearly full. The crew decided to haul in one last line before heading back. Pete worked at the stern, carefully guiding the fishing lines, while Dan coiled the ropes and checked the crates. Rob remained at the wheel, keeping an eye on the boat's position and scanning the horizon for any changes in the weather. Then, without warning, the boat shuddered violently. The men froze, the sound of metal groaning under strain breaking the stillness. Something massive had struck the hull. Rob leaned out of the wheelhouse, his face pale as he saw a dark shadow pass beneath the boat. Before he could react, a second impact rocked the vessel, nearly throwing Pete off his feet. "Shark!" Rob shouted, his voice cutting through the confusion. A great white shark, easily 16 feet long, had rammed the boat. Great whites in these waters are among the largest in the world, capable of taking down prey much larger than themselves. Experts later speculated that the shark had been drawn to the boat by the scent of fish and mistook it for a potential meal. The third strike was harder. The shark slammed into the stern with such force that the boat tilted dangerously, water splashing over the edge. Pete, standing closest to the impact, lost his footing and fell backward. He grabbed for the railing but missed, plunging into the cold sea. His yell was cut short as the water closed over him. The shark turned immediately, its dorsal fin slicing through the surface as it zeroed in on the struggling man. Pete thrashed, trying to swim back to the boat, but the predator was faster. It struck from below, its jaws clamping onto Pete's leg. The force of the bite dragged him under, the water churning red as he fought to break free. On deck, Dan reacted first. He grabbed a harpoon, shouting for Rob to maneuver the boat closer to Pete. The shark resurfaced, its massive head shaking violently as it tore into Pete's leg. Dan leaned over the side, jabbing the harpoon into the shark's back. The predator released Pete momentarily, retreating a few meters but continuing to circle. Pete surfaced, gasping for air, his leg mangled and bleeding heavily. Rob threw a life buoy while Dan extended an oar, pulling Pete toward the boat. Just as Pete reached the edge, the shark lunged again, its powerful body sending a wave of water over the deck. Dan struck at it with the oar, landing a blow to its snout, while Rob grabbed Pete under the arms and hauled him aboard. The shark wasn't done. It circled the boat, bumping the hull repeatedly as if testing its strength. The men worked frantically to stop Pete's bleeding, using a belt as a makeshift tourniquet. Pete was pale and shaking, his leg barely recognizable beneath the shredded fabric of his pants. Blood pooled on the deck as Rob radioed for emergency assistance, his hands trembling as he gave their coordinates. The shark made another pass, this time ramming the side of the boat hard enough to knock one of the crates overboard. Dan grabbed a boat hook, using it to fend off the predator as it attempted to bite the floating crate. The boat rocked dangerously, and the small vessel was no match for the shark's size and power. Minutes felt like hours as the crew waited for help, the predator's presence keeping their adrenaline high. At one point, the shark breached, its massive body partially leaving the water as it snapped at the air, a chilling display of its strength. Rob revved the engine, creating noise and turbulence in an attempt to drive the shark away. The noise seemed to disorient the predator, which swam off toward deeper waters. But no one dared to let their guard down. When the rescue helicopter arrived, the crew worked quickly to prepare Pete for transport. A medic was lowered onto the boat, stabilizing Pete and administering pain relief before hoisting him into the chopper. The sight of Pete being lifted away was a relief, but Rob and Dan knew their ordeal wasn't over. The shark was still nearby, its shadow visible beneath the surface as the helicopter disappeared into the distance. Rob and Dan decided to abandon their remaining catch, dumping the fish crates overboard to distract the shark further. With the boat's hold lightened, Rob pushed the engine to its limit, steering the southern gale back toward shore. The shark followed briefly, its fin cutting through the water behind them, but eventually veered off, disappearing into the deep. The men reached the harbor hours later, their boat battered and their nerves shattered. Pete survived but lost his leg, a grim reminder of the attack. The incident, captured on a small onboard camera, stunned viewers worldwide and served as a chilling testament to the raw power of great white sharks. For the crew of the Southern Gale, it was a day that forever changed their relationship with the ocean.